Since Russian General Makarov's warning to the United States late last week that the continued pursuit of a U.S.-European ballistic missile defense system would put Russia in a position where they would consider striking those facilities preemptively if they need to, the United States press has practically covered up the tension between the United States and Russia over the planned U.S.-Europe missile defense system, and by omission have lied about how close we really are to thermonuclear war. Just days after Makarov's warning, the newly inaugurated president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, made the decision not to attend the upcoming G8 meeting in Camp David on May the 18th to 19th, and really represents a message to those that think that Russia's warnings are just posturing. Now, despite Russia's warnings and the United States continuing to deny that Russia is the target of the U.S. military buildup in Europe, actions always speak louder than words. In addition to building the ABM system in Europe, the United States is planning to spend $4 billion to upgrade NATO's Western European nuclear arsenal. The alliance is preparing to replace dumb free-fall nuclear bombs with new generation of precision-guided nuclear gravity bombs, and will also require new delivery aircraft, the Lockheed Martin F-35, each costing $100 million. In a report put out by the European Leaders Network called Escalation by Default? The Future of NATO Nuclear Weapons in Europe, authored by former arms control advisor to the United States mission to the NATO headquarters, Ted CA, the point was made there that the upgrade will indeed target countries like Iran and Russia. It says, this will increase NATO's ability to reach targets in Russia with tactical nuclear weapons. The initiative comes at a time when NATO and Russia are already locked in a tense standoff over missile defense. This could alienate Russia in particular and worsen the prospects for further negotiation on non-strategic nuclear weapon reductions in Europe as a whole. The report correctly concludes that this kind of nuclear escalation by default would only harm security and safety prospects throughout Europe and should be avoided. The fact of the matter is that thermonuclear war is a reality that is currently on the table. The United States, since the Bush administration, in fact, until this very moment where Obama is in office, has been the military brawn that the financial oligarchy in Wall Street and London have used to impose various forms of slavery on this planet. And in the midst of the greatest economic financial collapse the United States and Europe economies have ever seen, this oligarchy would like nothing other than for Europe to submit to the austerity being heaped on them and give up their sovereignty by the way of the European Stability Mechanism, the permanent bailout up for a vote in just weeks. But there are some nations, like Russia for example, which are not ready to submit, and therefore the threat of thermonuclear war is now waving over their heads. And if thermonuclear war hovers around one nation's head, it hovers over us all. This is the importance of removing Barack Obama from office before the November elections. If you want the United States to regain its sovereignty from the London and Wall Street financial oligarchy, you have to remove their puppet in the White House. In fact, this has nothing to do with the election. This is not a political or election issue as such. It is an issue of survival. This message was sent loud and clear today by two members of the LaRouche National Slate, Diane Sayer in the 5th District of New Jersey and Keisha Rogers in Texas's 22nd District. In both statements, now posted on the LaRouche PAC website, the National Slate situated the need to remove Obama in the context of his role in the escalating thermonuclear war drive by his British masters.
And what you have now is a situation which is so tense on the brink of thermonuclear war, and most Americans are not even aware of what is going on. What has occurred is that President Obama has picked up the leftover policy of the Bush-Cheney administration to encircle Russia in Eastern Europe with a series of anti-ballistic missile defense systems. If these systems were to actually work, and there's reason to believe that they would not, but supposing they did, we could then knock out the Russian missile system within 3 minutes, which completely offsets the deterrence and international stability. So we have put the Russians in a situation where they will be forced to respond unless Obama is removed from office or can be made to come to his senses, which at this point is unlikely. Obama is saying that he will possibly change his position after the November elections. The NATO summit where this is being decided occurs May 20th. That's 2 weeks from now. So we are in a countdown of literally days to a possible thermonuclear confrontation with Russia, possible preemptive strikes on our installations in Eastern Europe if we choose to go ahead with this insane policy.
I am running to preserve and defend the policies of our Constitution, the policies that were put forth under our Declaration of Independence. I need you to stand with me today. The fight that you waged as you served this country allowed for me to be able to run, allowed for me to be able to express my views and express my principles. My opponents in the Democratic Party don't believe that I should be able to do that. They don't believe that I should be able to say what is principally true. And what is principally true is that we are at risk of losing this nation. And I will stand up in defense of it. And that means by calling for the immediate impeachment and removal of the President of the United States.
Other and perhaps less poignant but notable expressions of this have come from the U.S. Congress. Yesterday, Senator Webb introduced legislation to curtail Obama's Committee on Humanitarian Interventions by requiring that humanitarian interventions abroad must first get congressional approval, a measure that he dodged in the war with Libya. Now, this is an obvious outgrowth of a progress that led to Representative Walter Jones introducing H.R. 107 on March the 7th, stating that except in response to an actual or imminent attack against the territory of the United States, the use of offensive military force by a president without prior and clear authorization of an act of Congress violates Congress's exclusive power to declare war under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 of the Constitution, and therefore constitutes an impeachable high crime and misdemeanor under Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution. Representative Jones will be a guest on Executive Intelligence Review's LaRouche Show tomorrow, which you can tune in at from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time to further understand the necessity right now to remove Barack Obama from office. That is the job we have to do. It's either Obama or thermonuclear war. And as Diane Sayer put it today, these are the only choices before you.
A new Cold War or political posturing in an election season? The ongoing drama over missile defense systems is pitting NATO against Russia. Russian officials are again threatening preemptive strikes on Eastern European missile defense facilities if the U.S. goes ahead with its missile defense shield. Fox News reports.
Washington is pushing for a NATO plan to deploy missile defense elements across Europe. Russian leaders argue such a system could undermine their own nuclear forces. They warn of retaliatory action.
This back and forth has been going on for a while, but the rhetoric is getting more heated. So are the tensions real? 2012 is an election year for both Russia and the United States. CNN recalls the admission comes just over a month after President Barack Obama unknowingly spoke into an open microphone to Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, saying he would have more flexibility to negotiate on missile defense after the U.S. elections. According to the U.S. and NATO, the missile interceptors are intended to protect Europe against attacks from Iran or North Korea. But the Moscow Times says Russia is digging in. Russia has been outspoken in its resistance to NATO-backed U.S. plans to deploy a system of missiles to protect its European allies from potential attacks from states like Iran, saying it could neutralize Russian military capabilities. The U.S. rejected Russia's bid to build a joint missile defense in Europe. The U.S. also won't guarantee those won't target Russian missiles. Russia today says mistrust is building. Russia, meanwhile, argues that the construction of the system just miles from the Russian border will tip the nuclear scales between the two former Cold War foes. The Western Military Alliance plans to announce the deployment of the first phase of the Missile Defense Shield at a NATO summit in Chicago in June. Russian elections took place in March, but U.S. elections obviously won't take place until November. For Newsy, I'm Megan Murphy. Multiple sources, The Real Story.